This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by ChasingArtwork.com. It's where you can find all my new and old artwork available for purchase anywhere in the world. That's ChasingArtwork.com.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how a genre gets made. Dear listeners, fleshy bags of mostly water, fellow humans on this rock hurtling through the unknown, a good number of people have arrived at the studio today. I would like you to make crowd noises briefly, just mumble, mumble, so that everyone knows how many people are here. Nothing from Justin. We've got a full house here today. We have today Darcy, Justin, and Lyndon. And they're going to have a lot of explaining to do because this cadre of creatives, helpers, and emotional support humans, is that a fair way to describe you? Related to... Yes, you do so much more and so much more. Have just come back from the Toronto Fan Expo, Canada's biggest convention of the year, and I didn't go. So I was left home alone with a pile of work, a big stack of FOMO, and just texts from these people telling me how things were going. But we have purposely not allowed any of them to tell us anything. So I'm going to go around the room again here and introduce the troublesome, what's the word I'm looking for? Dramatis persona. Justin, known the world over as Chasing Artwork. Darcy, who has told me that she would like to be introduced as an instructional designer, but also a whole lot more. She went with Justin to the show and was sort of his logistics coordinator over that weekend. They're looking at each other listlessly, right? They're also making heart eyes at each other. You guys should all know that. And Lyndon Radchenka, who is back from France.
Oh, I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back. I'm ready to go.
Friends of the podcast will recognize Lyndon's name. He is the letterer of The Eye Collector. He is the writer and creator of numerous comics projects of his own, and they all went to the show. Tell me about it right now, and go.
The show started when I texted Justin and realized he was halfway across the airport from us.
Different terminals.
Different terminal. Well, yeah, same terminal in Winnipeg, different terminals in Toronto because the airport is huge. And he was kind enough to share a giant Uber with us and then share his expertise of Fan Expo Toronto because Stephen Call and I, who have never attended the show before, we're going for our first year.
First year at Toronto Fan Expo.
As vendors. Well, vendors or attendees.
Bum, bum, bum. Now, Justin, this is the first year at full power back for the Toronto Fan Expo. Full power.
Something bugged me there, actually. I couldn't figure out what it was, but it hit me later in the show. First off, this was their biggest Fan Expo yet. They actually oversold tickets, which conventions apparently do from time to time, and just hope that the fire marshal doesn't catch it. But somebody was throwing numbers around like 140,000 people.
No way.
It felt like
Canadian show? Come on.
It felt like
it was a zoo. It was back to like 2019. I remember feeling like, oh, this is not quite the crazy wall of flesh that I'm used to.
That's what I'm used to.
It was a little bit down. Like 2014 to 17 were crazy, and then 18 and 19, I think we still had great shows, but attendance seemed to be like a little bit less. This was back to those like glory years of, if you were in a row, you just got shoved down the row with the crowd. It was hard to stop at tables because the crowds were so dense.
The first year I did Fan Expo, I remember somebody referring to it as the meat tide. Mm-hmm. Right? And it just washes against the edge of your booth.
The cosplay contest happens and the tide goes out.
Yeah, that's right.
And then it comes back in when the contest is done.
Oh my goodness.
But something that bugged me, and I was trying to put my finger on it, was this is the only show I did in 2021 because they had a little like half Fan Expo show, and when I was going on vacation, Darcy and I were in Halifax for like was our first vacation since COVID. And so I sent my little brother. So Toronto was the only group of people who saw my COVID work before now. So I'm used to being able to say, like, I have 40 new pieces. And a whole bunch of people replied, like, oh, I've seen all those. Like, what's new since October?
They've already taken you
like,
for granted.
Oh, well, there's like 3 new pieces. Oh, okay.
All right, so I want to know from Darcy, who is from another world. You're not from the world of weird artists throwing their art at people.
No.
No. Do you want to tell the listeners what your typical day-to-day work is?
My normal job is still sort of creative. So I'm an instructional designer for an insurance company. So I make all those cheesy training videos and e-lessons.
So you're used to managing content.
Yes.
That's front-facing
Yes.
to an audience.
That is corporate.
Corporate-minded, but no meat tides to worry about.
Negative.
Negative. So what's it like for you to come and see this side of it? You're no stranger to shows.
No,
but
this is my 5th, I think. My 5th in total. So I'm
Not
getting
even the
more
biggest.
immune to everything. It's not as big of a shock, but it's still quite different than my everyday.
So Agent Emmy, my agent and Justin's agent on a couple of projects, came to me through text message and said, I have a new appreciation of what it is you describe doing at these shows, because they hadn't been to a show in a long time and hadn't been to the Toronto Fan Expo in a long time. And I think that gigantic overflow, it was like, wow, you guys really, you do this all the time, eh?
And like I didn't aim to do that. Like we were going to meet up sometime after the show, and it just worked out that they could come to the show. And so the whole time I was kind of pleased with the way this worked out, because I got to like showcase one of my biggest booths at the busiest shows during a super busy time.
Right.
So if there was ever like an ideal time to show my agent, here's what I do on the floor, like everything aligned.
Your full plumage.
And then they also had like another client there as well, so that like another author like came to the booth and got to like, I feel like they got to meet Emmy for the first time, or they hadn't seen each other like since COVID. So like it worked
face
out.
to face.
Yeah.
Instead of face to Facebook. So Darcy, then I have a question, because from the outside, the plumage is quite. You know what it's like on the public side of the booth. What was it like on the inside of that gigantic setup?
Justin got a lot of compliments. He was told he was amazing many times.
Oh yeah. Does that? How does that affect your guys' relationship?
He just made sure I heard it every single time.
Would he ask them to speak up? Would he look over at you for confirmation?
Can you say what you just said?
So we have this ongoing agreement that every time I put sweaty clothes on a table or make a mess or do something really silly, that she has to go back into her memories of all the great things people say about me at shows to offset the dumb things that I do in day to day.
You know, as a work spouse here, I feel that also. I'll come to my desk and I'll be like, wait, are Justin's boxing sweats on my desk? How did this happen? Why
I don't think I've ever put them on your desk.
Why is this happening? Oh yeah, they've been there. You were like laid out stuff on the side. Then I think about all of the things that he has done that are beyond the call of duty.
I maintain though that I would not be as successful in this area of my life if I was an organized, normal person.
Princess Jasmine, you're very
wonderful, magnificent, glorious, punctual.
punctual.
Sorry.
Beautiful.
Nice recovery.
Now let's talk to an organized, normal person. Lyndon, you made it through law school. You must therefore be an organized, normal person.
I don't know if I'd call it organization. If anything, I got really used to compartmentalizing, which is something that you guys have spoken about before, but the idea that if you get caught up in the big picture too much, you never get anything done. You just sort of get crushed under the weight of everything. And you really learn how to look sort of just 1 or 2 steps ahead and just focus on those objectives and goals. And then you find that when you look back, you've now walked, a kilometer instead of getting dragged down by all of the things that you were terrified of doing in the future. So
One cow at a time. See previous podcast for that reference.
I wasn't going to mention cows. I wasn't going to mention mountains.
Yeah, come on. These are supposed to be standalone episodes, you guys.
But okay, yeah. So, how was the show? Tell us about
Okay, so
your experience.
First off, I have not tabled at a show since Calgary Expo 2019, which Gregory was my neighbor. You, Justin, were there, so you probably remember it also, was this show where Calgary was hit with a snowstorm on the Saturday, and attendance disappeared.
Yeah, we were calling it the slow storm.
That's right.
The slow storm.
Yeah, so I haven't done a show since then. Stephen and I had not done a show together since October of 2018. So it was like touching down from this year of traveling in Europe and going immediately back into the biggest show in Canada and one of the largest shows in North America. So it was 0 to 100 really fast, and I've forgotten how much I loved sort of the pre-show buzz when everyone is getting set up, and when you walk in the morning before the attendees come in, and how that feels. But it was...
In my heart, I equate it to the way trailers feel, right? Like that moment when the trailers are playing. I just went to see a movie with a friend of the podcast, James Gillespie. It was his birthday yesterday. Shout out to James. So we went to see Bullet Train. And that moment when the trailers are coming, where everything feels like this could be great. You don't necessarily know if it's going to be, but it feels. That's what that walk in the show feels.
Yeah, so I know Stephen and I didn't really know what to expect. And if we're talking... numbers or sales, Thursday for the cost of going to Toronto and the table cost, we were hoping it would be good. And Thursday and Friday were both fairly slow for sales for us. But then Saturday and Sunday hit, and it was I can't actually describe. It was night and day, and the show ended up being very good for us. But there was a little while there where I think we were both, without talking about it, almost panicking or sort of anxious. And then it flipped, and by the end of the weekend, we both were saying, "Wow, that was amazing! We can't wait to come back next year."
So, for the dear listeners who are wondering, where are you on your creative journey, your comics journey, compared to say where Justin's at? You've been doing this, Justin, for how many years?
I've been doing this show in particular since I think 2010, 2011, like right when it started up.
So you have a lot more rubber on the road, as they say.
Yeah. And actually, I noticed this year, and I think a lot of people had been wanting to get into conventions for 2020 and then couldn't. There seemed to be quite a large number of brand new people. There's the very first show, almost like every other artist that I talked to, it was their first show. So that was...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
so many
normally... Okay, so now I have to unpack this because people... That's a hard show for a long time. It's been a hard show to get into. So that means a lot of people let spaces go.
Yeah, so I was wondering about that as well. Like regular people who had been doing it for years, like a lot of us had 2019, like our 2020 booth was paid for in 2019, and then it hasn't happened till now. So this booth was paid for years ago.
Ours also.
Yeah, right? So... Are people still, like our other vendors, a little worried about just the massive crowds? So they bailed out. Like there was empty tables at this show, which has never been the case. There's never empty tables at this show.
There was also at the Regina show that I was at previous with your brother there. Yeah. We went and did that, and that seemed reasonable for a smaller town, smaller show, getting their act together. But I'm astonished to hear that that's true of the Toronto.
So is it those artists and vendors have had to move on and get real people jobs and find other sources of income, and so conventions just aren't a thing anymore, or are they scared about coming back still?
Well, in Regina, talking to the organizers, they said that it was a lack of communication, and they didn't want... So, like, for example, someone had booked their spot, paid for a table, but hadn't been in touch recently or followed up to say, we're not coming, or we are coming, and they didn't want to pull a, well, you didn't tell us, so F you, we didn't give you a spot, or we gave your spot away. You missed out. So they left them the spot in the hopes that that lack of communication may still mean that they're receiving the emails and the updates, but they're just not responding. They're going to show up on the day. So maybe Toronto was doing the same thing, just kind of trying to create some goodwill after a number of years where no one knew what the heck was going on.
Well, conversely, I know from following on a number of artists online and talking to people at the show, the Toronto show was very late in getting people their information this year. Like, there were people that weren't sure they were even accepted until days before the show was to kick off.
Right.
So I would almost think it's the opposite, where the show was failing to communicate with people, and therefore they may have thought they were out because they weren't hearing anything.
Interesting.
While we're
Kevin Boyd, if you're listening, you let us know.
We love Kevin Boyd.
Yeah.
But while we're complaining about Fan Expo, I wanted to, maybe Darcy, you can explain to the dear listener the fire exits that the artists had to deal with in the Rose and Artist Alley.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, there's so much buildup here.
I know.
There's so much. They have the telepathy of the long relationship eyes right now, so I can't wait for this whole story.
We talked about it.
Yeah. So we walked beginning before the show started on the Thursday, and we walked up and down, and people were still setting up, but all the booths, so where Lyndon was, they were literally back to back for their chairs, and there was zero exit anywhere other than at the ends.
Or like no way out of
There was no way out.
the islands
Even
So-
I
of
spent the
tables.
weekend crawling out under our table.
Come on.
No, I swear, we made a little space in the middle under our table, and that's how we had to get in and out.
Which on an accessibility slash
What?
hazard
Yeah.
stance, like, that was not, in my opinion, at all acceptable. And my theory is, well, if we took away those 2 feet here and 2 feet here and 2 feet here down the 100-foot row, there's another table. There's more payments. But that was not safe or acceptable in my opinion.
Yeah, what
at all.
is-
That was not okay.
Sometimes I brick myself in and I have to spring-heeled jacket over my table. You've seen me do that, but not, I consider that a luxury of my station, not a necessity that people should have to do.
Yeah, so the way they've set it up is it's a row of, let's say, 10 tables. It's like 70 feet of 6-foot tables side by side by side. And then it's capped off by 2 end caps. And those end caps are also where the entrance and exit are. And so the end cap has 1.5 feet behind their table, enough room for maybe a chair. Yeah. And then the other 1.5 feet is supposed to be the entrance and exit for that entire row of 20 to 40 artists.
And P.S., those end caps sometimes are as much as 3 times what a regular table space is. You're paying premium for that end space, so you use it completely.
So then if you've got a photography stand or some kind of big backdrop, you are encroaching on the entrance and exit for all these people, and it's just not safe, and kind of really stressful for the person on the end cap, and not fun.
Huh.
They need to address that, change it, do something.
Interesting.
Well, my
So from
understanding
an
of-
insurance perspective, Darcy, from an
Liability.
this is a liability, right? Yeah. Although they did double down on letting us know that I got the email for Fan Expo, like, if you don't have insurance, make sure you have insurance. So I wonder if somebody was like, what if it goes wrong?
Well, and I know the show had an extensive wait list for people that were trying to get tables.
Really?
Or so they said. So I wouldn't. My guess is that there will not be fewer vendor tables next year.
So do you think those empty tables were what we were talking about, 2019 books that just never came
paid,
for their tables?
Never found out.
Never
didn't want
followed up.
Yeah.
Or the luggage got lost in Toronto.
Yeah, that could happen. See previous episodes, the Toronto black hole of luggage.
That doesn't happen to people, does it?
Thank you for choosing Magic Carpet for all your travel needs. Don't stand until the rug has come to a complete stop. Thank you. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye.
I want to talk then about the feeling of the people, like putting the event aside in the previous years where people felt super uncomfortable to be in close proximity. Clearly, they were over it in Toronto. They packed it in. How did that feel to you? We've kind of slowly ramped up to that level of crowd. So I think for us, it's a little bit like the lobster. We've been boiling a little bit in the pot, so it's not so bad. How did it feel to Lyndon and Darcy to suddenly be packed in with 140,000 people?
I know for me, spending all the time that I did over in Europe, they've been treating COVID like it hasn't existed for almost a year. So
Wow.
that was quite. We didn't necessarily spend our time packed in rooms like sardines in the same way, but it was very much a sense over there. Well, we've quote unquote learned to live with it. So coming to the show and being packed in was maybe a little more normal for me than it would have been for some others. But at the same time, I felt very conscious when I was leaving my booth. And things were tight. I was putting on a mask and feeling a little like I didn't want to be standing too close to anyone for too long. But I think when we were behind the booth and we had a little bit of a buffer, we felt generally more comfortable being like talking to people without masks on, which is, I guess, a sign that things are changing into some sort of normal.
Yeah, or just how people are.
Yeah.
We are not medical professionals, so we're not offering you COVID-related advice here. We're just describing an event that did occur. What about you?
Well, we wore masks, I'd say, 95% of the time when we were there. And we came from San Diego. That masks were mandatory. How many people did you think wore masks?
I think it was about 25% of the crowd was my guesstimate. And then San Diego was 100%, and then Montreal, I would say it was like 5 or 10%, maybe. Yeah. So they're a little safer than normal.
Yeah, Regina was about maybe 40%. Yeah. It's easier to tell because the crowd was much smaller. Did you find that it felt more like a social event for people than a purchasing event for people? I've heard some things floating around in the social sphere talking about conventions lately. Like, people are thrilled to be back. And it's their excuse to finally have a big social outing, but they're not treating the shows as like, oh, I'm going to go find that piece of artwork, or I'm going to track down that artist. They're just thrilled there's an event where fellow nerds are.
Finally, you can hang out with those people that you've been separated from.
Yeah. Did you feel your regulars show up, or did you feel
just like as far as like me as an artist and other artists that I'm used to seeing on the road so much? It was like every time I left my table, I ran into somebody I haven't seen since, the event. And, so lots of catch-up chats, which was great.
What about from the attendees? A lot of people just want to catch up, find out about your world. More chit-chatters, or like serious, like, ooh, look, a new piece, must have it, mine, throw money, and leave.
It was hard.
Maybe Darcy should answer this as the outside observer.
I mean, you've had a few people that wanted to just sit there and chat, but I wouldn't say it was anything more.
Didn't stand out? No.
Yeah, so Greg, you're not going to like this answer, but this felt like the heyday of conventions.
Oh,
like, it was just the crazy crowds and like very brisk sales. Like, Darcy and I did not have much time to...
You couldn't swoon at each other?
We couldn't drink or eat. We had a back room and we didn't get a chance to sit in it and just take a break because there was only 2 of us and we had 4 tables. And so I think any kind of socializing that people wanted to do was cut short by other people elbowing in to make their purchase order. We felt like bartenders, just constantly like making sure everybody's dealt with.
Topped up.
Yeah.
And you had a new project, Lyndon, your Laundryman Black and White issue, which you were a little worried about maybe how it would be received. And now you only have about 30% of your stock left.
That's right, yeah. It's I can't talk about the show the same way that Justin can, because it being our first time in Toronto, we don't have the base that you've built up over the last 10 years. So we weren't quite sure what to expect. And also, we were only selling books. We had no art prints. So we were pure booksellers for the weekend.
And what was the decision there? Because you guys have done prints in the past.
We have. Most of our prints, though, are pulls from our books. And they've never necessarily been sales drivers. We found a lot of the shows, obviously there's a lot of fan art. And we don't really do fan art. We might in the future if there's something that's, Steven's really passionate about or really likes. I obviously...
Or do some stuff for Printed in Blood.
Yeah, exactly. But we've never had a booth that's carried fan art. So we just didn't bring them this time. And we just sold books. So it felt like at points we were almost awash in a sea of, anime fan art and Funko Pops in the middle of our row. just two guys selling books. But yeah,
Just a little sparrow among the peacocks.
there you go.
Right.
And I know that Stephen and I have been working on this project, The Laundryman, for the last couple of years, and we're at a point where we're almost done the first 3 issues of the series, which we plan on printing as a single volume, like a trade-sized volume. But because issue 1 is already done, we wanted to start talking about the project. And the project for the listener is essentially 2 men who work out of a laundromat solving supernatural crimes and mysteries. So it's essentially like Ghostbusters meets X-Files with some supernatural in it.
Right.
And we brought this book to
On a
the show.
tumble dry setting.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
A tumble dry of X-Files and Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Just mix it all
That's
up
the
in there.
pull quote. You can
Yeah.
use it on your book from me.
So it made its debut at the Calgary show, and I think Stephen was tabling with Zach Schuster. I wasn't at that show. They sold some copies, but that was really where Dead Work had a strong showing. And this show, we were pleasantly surprised to find that Laundryman was super popular, even for people who didn't. When you first make contact with someone, you can tell if they're a buyer or if they're just kind of chatting to be polite. But there were a fair number of people who started as polite chatters who walked away with a copy of that book because they liked the idea and they liked that we were selling it for $5 an issue, and it was a good way to show some support.
So you brought up something interesting that I think the 3 of you have a unique perspective to talk about. So Justin has what we would call in the business prestige format books. If he has a book on his table, it's luscious, it's hardcover, it's $30, $25. It's not a casual purchase for most people, whereas a $5 purchase is a quick flip over. What did you see as to the strengths and weaknesses of those 2 approaches? And you on the outside, as someone, Darcy, who's just seeing it not as a creative person with no heart attached. I mean, your heart is attached somewhere else along the line there, but right? What does that look like to you guys, those 2 ends of the spectrum?
Well, we were able to, like you said, to flip a number of Laundryman copies because they were accessible. So, for example, I had one guy who sort of got clogged in our row standing in front of us. And, we hit him with a, hey, can we talk to you about indie comics? And he like stared at us for a few seconds and he went, if it's quick. So we're like, all right. And we like jumped in and it was just quick, like 30-second pitch on Laundryman. We ended it by saying that the book was $5. He bought 2 for his kids, and he was on his way, and that was it. Whereas we had Laundryman for $5, we're selling Dead Work for $30, and we're selling Infinite Universe, our first book together, for $20. And that book also had a really strong showing at the show and was probably our leader in sales, which was excellent. Whereas Dead Work was a little bit slower. So I found having sort of price points for everyone was an asset to us.
Yeah, that
$5 in, a $20 in. I sold a couple of What Will Not Lasts for $10. We sort of had everything covered for people who took the time to chat with us.
Salam and good evening to you, worthy friend. Please, come closer.
Too close. A little too close.
There.
Many of these people, maybe they've heard of or been aware of Dragon Nanny, have seen this book. What is the relationship, Darcy, when someone comes up and you're holding Justin's book and they ask about it? How does that interaction go?
So this made me think of something I think I've noticed lately. I've been doing more limited edition stuff. And I don't think that would have worked if I'd come out the gate with limited edition stuff. But everybody who's buying, I have like a limited run art book. I have limited run special foil prints. I have things that are hand numbered and a little less in quantity and a little more expensive.
And these are between $40 and $60 range prices,
yeah.
Canadian. PS.
And the people who are buying those are people who have seen me for the last 4, 5, 6+ years.
Right.
And so it's great to be able to start doing that, but I think I had to put in those that 8 years of legwork before somebody's going to pay a premium for something that's hand numbered by some random, right? Mm-hmm. They've seen the work over and over again. So, okay, I see you every year. I buy from you every year. That massive canvas that you have there, I do want that.
Yeah.
But if they'd never seen me before, I don't know if I could move those big ticket items.
Yeah. So to round the circle here on some of the stuff you were saying about not having prints at the booth and stuff you're saying about being present for a long time at a show. At the Winnipeg show coming up in October 30th. Always a great show for me, but I have a project called the Minus Institute, which for 3-4 years, I've had prints of artwork from that project, but no graphic novel to accompany it. People will look at it, they will say, what's this from? I've never heard of this, I'm interested in this, but it has no connection to a fandom that they're aware of. It's catching their eye, and it's generated, frankly, in that time, thousands of conversations about the book, which now is going to exist. And so I'm curious about what effect that's going to have, in a way, previewing my favorite pages and pieces as art for the wall for a book that is now going to be available for their hands. That's going to be an interesting sort of circle. And at a low price point, because it's just a little 40-page, prestige format little thing. So it's not going to be, astronomically expensive either. So for the same price of a print, I can get the book.
Yeah, there's that internal debate you have with some items. It's almost like if you priced it higher, it would move more than if it was priced really low. If it's priced too low, then people think, oh, so this isn't worthwhile. There's not much to this.
Yeah,
they don't put as much weight on it. It's like, oh, but this is a little more expensive. Like, what's going on here?
But I think at the same time, this comes around again to the idea of having people who know your work.
Yeah.
Right. You can do that because you've been at a show for a number of years and you've been talking to people. Mm-hmm. But you couldn't necessarily show up at a first-time show with something like that and ask for people who don't know you to spend whatever $40 on a limited run print.
Yeah, and there's an interesting thing going on. So comic book land has a long history of something called the ash can. It's a term that's kind of gone out of favor, but what it basically meant was comic creators used to show up at shows with small format, unfinished, uncolored versions of comics that were coming out soon. And so everything they'd done so far for a project that might not be out for another year, they'd bring and they would sell their ash cans to a small group of collectors who were really interested in seeing process. Now that same process stuff goes in the back of graphic novels. It becomes a thing where we see how it's all done. I think there's a benefit if your book is unfinished, like Laundryman, it's issue 1 in black and white of a long form project, to have it present, but to have the price point commensurate to the fact that maybe they'll never ever be able to find the rest of it. That's the barrier to purchasing, right? Oh, it's an independent comic. I'm buying issue 1. Will I ever find you again, ever, to find issue 2?
Well, that was the nice part about that book was, first off, we only printed 100 copies of it, so we did hand number them on the back, and we explained that to people. But what we said, for those that seemed really into the idea, was you can come back and find us next year, and we'll either have the second issue or we'll have the first 3 issues in color in a trade that you can get from us. So if you like this, we'll be here next year. We've already rebooked our table. You can come back and find this, and we'll have more work for you to see.
Right. But I think the internet has taught us that you can, promise in one hand and shit in the other, and you see which one fills up first.
Sure.
Right? So people are a little more wary to be like, oh, I'll for sure be here next year. You come and find me, right? Especially in a room of 140,000 people. Of
course.
Right? So there's always that barrier. I sell a lot to first-time people who are like, what is this booth? What's this all about? Infinitum and Underworld are my 2 top sellers. They're both done-in-one graphic novels that the premise is very clear. One is a time travel murder mystery. The other one is like mythology, true crime. Even if they never can find me again, they have everything they need from those books in their hands when they go. So I find that that's sort of my midpoint for where I'm at. So someone might have never heard of me before. They haven't seen me for 5 years at that show, but they noticed me for the first time, and they're like, oh, what do you do? Once I run the gamut of this stuff on the table, they usually are focusing in on the done-in-one, complete story, run off away.
That's what happened with us. I think that's why Infinite Universe was a good seller for us at a first-time show, was because we could explain that this is a one-shot sci-fi graphic novel, and if you never see us again, this is it. You don't have to worry about following up on another book.
Right. You got to be snake oil salesman.
No.
Yeah. Trundle your little cart from town to town.
I mean, you've seen us tear down at shows. It's a 5-minute business, and we're out of there.
Yeah, you're on the road. Yeah.
Yeah, on a show this. How many artists do you think there were? There it's hundreds, right?
Yeah.
So even if you see something that like really catches your eye, and this happens to me like
You might never find them at the show again.
yeah, and like I'm there early before the attendees are there, and like during setup, I walking through, it's like, whoa, I love this artist.
You're there
come
for
back
the
later.
trailers.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
You'll never find that
I'll
booth
never
again.
find them again. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it was around this area, but I can't find it. So, yeah, there's that definitely like, yeah, I might not ever find this person again. It's a real thing.
Pro tip to anyone attending the Fan Expo next year. Don't bother with booth numbers trying to find things. Use the pillar numbers.
Pillar numbers.
The pillars are all numbered up near the top by the ceiling. You can see it from everywhere. All the pillars have a number. So when someone is saying, how do I find you again? Don't say, I'm booth 24B. Point up to the pillar that's beside you and say, see that? That's 17B. That's me.
They didn't run those all the like they had signs for the Artist Alley numbers, but they didn't run them in each row. It was just a small stretch, and then you were out in the wild.
Free for all.
So we had to basically say, we're near this person who's on the wall, because there was booths running along the wall near our row.
Darcy has wisdom. I can
I was
see
going to
it.
say the amount of people that stopped in asking for a specific booth number
Us too.
constantly, and it's like, I don't know, go back and to the right, and I'm sure you'll come across them eventually, because we had no idea.
We sent a couple people actually over to our booth, or tried to, and we just had to say, go to the end of our row, go on the red carpet, and follow it towards the far wall, and you'll see chasing our work.
Okay, I've lived through this problem a lot. Let's, rather than criticize it, there's actually 5 silent Dan producer, Delicious Dan.
I thought it was Delicious Dan.
Delicious
Now he's
Dan.
Silent Dan.
Silent. There's 5 of us here. What's the solution to this?
Right, because a lot of shows will have, and we have some hanging in the studio here, where they have the booth display name. We have a Sam Biko, we have a chasing artwork that has a booth number on them. But for those of us, there's a guest GMB Kamichuk one here as well.
Yes.
You'll have those up at the booth, but those of us who build our own booths, the first thing we do is cover that up or take it down.
Doesn't match the branding, you have to take it down.
And then you can't really mark up the floor because anything you put on there can't be permanent. And if it's not permanent, the crowd is going to shuffle it off.
The flesh tide
The
will
flesh
wash
tide is
it
going to
away.
wash it away. So and then I've seen people do stuff like they'll label, like on their business cards, one by one, they'll write their booth number. I've seen people have like a little card, like a little display thing saying their booth number. And actually,
The number is useless unless you can find it.
right.
And at human level, like a body, anything that is covered up by bodies, right? That is one human scale.
Why is it always bodies with you?
Right? Obscures it. So it has to be high enough that a sight line can see it.
Yeah.
Solve this, showrunner Dan.
Here's the thing. No, and of course, the Fan Quest is a much smaller show, so this is not a problem. But I do see this at bigger shows, and I always see artists saying, hey, I'm in booth 1053, come find me.
What does that mean?
How is that going to be possible? You have to take it into consideration the physical space that you're in. I like that idea of the pillars, but there's probably not enough pillars to do that.
Right.
What if it's
everybody.
on your lanyards? But then if your booth gets moved,
Yeah,
or
and that
something
happens.
And then people
shuffles-
can't always see that, right?
No.
So there's
Yeah,
that as well.
so-
I just don't think the numbering it should be like, think about the layout. Okay, this row 1, 2, or even in terms of like a theater and seats in a theater where you have everything numbered in that.
I have a question. I have an idea.
Boy, Jafar's gonna be happy to see you.
Excellent work, Iago.
Ah, go on.
No, really, on a scale of 1 to 10, you are an 11.
Oh, Jafar, you're too kind. I'm embarrassed. I'm blushing.
So this
I'll give
goes
this back
back
to
to a terrible crime that occurred in my back lane where someone murdered my car with a sawzall. See previous podcasts. But they were stealing my catalytic converter, and we found out from the police that how they track the cars is they put those little air tags on the car so that they find it wherever it is. Once they see it out in the world, and then they just find it. But other companies or groups of people sell the AirTag information, which means you can share it. Which means if you had a little AirTag at your booth, could you share publicly that location? And then people could find you.
Well, but so the existing answer is that you check the con book.
And Lyndon, I saw nobody with the books.
No,
Were
neither
they-
did I.
Were they charging people for books, or why did nobody have a program at that show?
I would be willing to bet that everyone got pushed to the online app where there was a quote unquote book that no one used.
So I saw like 2 people with physical program maps, and usually everybody has those. Like everybody in VIP gets one.
Mm-hmm.
There's stacks of them all over the place for people to pick them up and see what's going on. So I wonder if you're right. But yeah, it was weird not seeing everybody with a program.
But also, when there's 100,000 people in a space, your cell phones are fairly unreliable.
But if I paid for a full page ad in that program, I'd be a little ticked off that I'm just a JPEG in an online book somewhere and not printed 100,000 times for everybody to pick up and keep.
And then throw away and fill the landfills and then hurt our planet.
Yeah, my bet would be that there were programs available for whatever premium ticket holders, or you could buy them for $5, and then everyone else, they advised you to go look on the app for your vendor. But no one does that, especially not when you're in the middle of a show and it's packed.
I tried to look up the map, and I had a heck of a time finding it for
Not for that year.
2022. It's like coming soon, within 2 weeks of the show, and I'm like, it is the show. Why isn't it up there?
Challenges. Okay, so these are some of the things that you guys were a little miffed about, and it sounds like it was
just things to bring up.
No one was looking for us intentionally. It was our first show.
For those of you who listened to the podcast and were wondering where the hell Justin was, now you know why you couldn't find him.
He was on the red carpet.
Yes. Yeah.
They also, do you remember, Gregory, they have like the premium Artist Alley across from Artist Alley. And these were like big booths with, they had like back draped walls and stuff like that. They got rid of all the draped walls and just gave them bare tables. And got rid of their carpet, got rid of their backdrops, and they looked these. So yeah, these. So
like these are the named artists that people.
No, these are not the guests. These are premium. These are like $400 more for the same amount of space.
But they took the pipe and drape out.
They took the pipe and drape out and just plopped tables on the floor. It looked really unfinished.
Did they expect people to arrive with like bigger booth setups there, or what was?
I think so, but there was a lot of people who got them were first-time authors and artists who didn't know how to properly make a splash to peacock, as we say on this show. And yeah, so it looked kind of barren in front of our booth, which was kind of great because then the crowd had more room to just glob around us.
Their loss was your gain.
That one artist, or that one author.
Do you want to talk about our neighbor?
You can leave names out of it to protect the innocent.
The poor guy across from us. So he had a very interesting style, I guess. Everything had the same kind of yellowy backgrounds, but it was like a dog face, but he was a boxer. And then it was like a monkey face, and he was, I don't know, doing a cook.
Famous characters, but as animals. So like the Joker, but a dog.
Yeah.
Right.
So like fun.
Were these AI generated pictures?
There was a booth that was selling those.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so he came over, and he was very nice at the beginning of the show, introduced himself, shook our hands, and then went back, and then for the rest of the time stared, because our crowd infringed on his area, and they were all facing us, and he was not getting a lot of...
You overshadowed some poor artist, is what you're saying.
Classic chasing
that
artwork.
We could take, we would look up, of course, straight across, and he would be staring. And he'd be glaring. Probably not intentional. He might just have that look. But he was just, I didn't feel like he was very impressed with us being... And he closed up an hour early every night.
Oh, that's not
good. He took everything down an hour early.
That's not good. Sir, if you're listening, don't do that. I've been in the shadow of chasing artwork before, and what you do is you engage with those people who are waiting. The people who are on the outside fringe trying to get at something, you are the ambassador to the other experience. Justin is too busy for them, but you're not.
I'll tell you about my indie comic.
Right?
That's right.
Can I tell you about my indie comic?
That's what we said to Tom King as they got stuck in front of our booth.
Right? And this is your chance to say, here are a whole bunch. Here's a captive audience that isn't going anywhere. The flesh tide is not moving, right? There's a little eddy, a little whirl. And I was Max Brooks. I've told this story before, but being in the shadow of Max Brooks, also huge lineup for days. One of my best shows ever, right? Because they're waiting, and you just talk to those people, and you hand some stuff to them, and you let them browse, and you don't do a hard sell. You do the softest of sell because they're not going anywhere. They're going to just hang around, and if they like it, then you're there. You got it. Don't pack up early and kick a rock.
Everything will be fine. Everything will be
find the diamond. Here, Jafar. Whatever you need will be fine.
You are most gracious, my liege.
And all you can do is make plans for what you're going to change for next year. So, Lyndon, what are you going to change for next year? Setup, inventory, how things are done. What's going to change?
Well, we made a request to not be in the middle of a row, first off.
Like near one side or the other? You don't, not necessarily an end cap, but...
Correct, yeah.
You don't have to crawl out to...
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you saw where we were. We were sort of in the maze of the Artist Alley, right in the center. So we asked to be a little bit really at either end of Artist Alley, because that's where the named, like, the industry comics professionals were. And it felt like where we were, there was no one anywhere near us that was selling comics. So we wanted to be closer to where there was other people selling comics. In terms of stock, I think next year we're going to have more books. So we might have to either bring another bag, or we're going to have to assess if we can leave some of our stock behind, some of the stock we would have brought this year behind, and like replace it. But in terms of things that we want to do differently, logistically, our Airbnb was a little bit farther away from the convention center than we liked. It was about a 15 minute drive in every morning via Uber. And I think we'd prefer to be somewhere that's either
walking distance.
Walking distance, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is tricky because in Toronto, if you want to be walking distance from the CN Tower, which is where the convention is,
there's also Blue Jays games going on
every day.
I want to
every day.
I got to jump in here because I saw a TikTok. It was hilarious because there was a Blue Jays, the Comic Con, and there was something else. There was like 3 or 4 things happening all at once in downtown Toronto, and somebody was there, and just like the mass of people. It was crazy.
It felt like every day when we left the convention, there was a Blue Jays game letting out at the same time. Like at least both Saturday and Sunday. I don't remember about Friday. I think it started actually as the convention was ending.
Were you ever tempted to just set up a booth in the street and sell to Blue Jays?
There was no space. There was no space. And then you came out on the Saturday and the Sunday, and the traffic in that area was blocked. Like our booth neighbors. They had to drive to their hotel room because they were staying near the airport, which is about a 20-minute drive when the traffic's good. And they said leaving the convention center on the Saturday, they sat there for over 2 hours in their car, which at the end of a 10-hour convention day sounds like torture.
So I have the luxury of 2 working legs, and so I really, really, really find relying on cars, vehicles, train schedules, any of that kind of stuff in a new city to be the biggest stressor for me if I'm trying to get to a show on time. So I'll eat the expense to be closer, just so that my heart beats at the right.
Closer for Gregory, dear listener, is a 40-minute walk.
Yeah, closer.
I'd accept that.
Yeah.
I would have accepted that.
Yeah.
We were, I think from our Airbnb, we were probably an hour to an hour 20.
That's a little much, yeah.
So we had to like time the surge pricing on the Uber to not spend a ton on Uber fees. But as I was saying, to stay in downtown Toronto in a hotel, if you don't time your booking properly, you could be looking at $400 or $500 a night.
Hotels have gotten expensive lately, especially lately.
Yeah. Okay, so to your summation for what you would change as we wrap up this episode. It seems sad to come so close to the end. But it's location, 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 Lyndon. You're going to be in a different place in the aisle. You're going to be in a different place physically before and after the show. You'll be in a different place mentally because you have a new book.
And we're going to bring the books that we told all the people this year that we would bring next year.
The location of those books will be where you promised. Yeah. Okay, what about you? What are you going to change? I have a follow-up question for Darcy, so I want to prime her so she can think about it. What do you think he should change? Okay. But don't say it yet.
Do you want to go
first? Let him go first. And then you be critical of his setup.
I was so pleased with my setup this year.
If you, dear listener, could see the pride that is actually dripping off of him right now.
Here's why. Because I have an end cap and I have the 2 tables behind me. So I actually have 4 booths that and I have been trying to get something like that for over 5 years. I have been hoping somebody will drop out, hoping more room will open up. I've had the 2 tables for years and years, and I've always wanted to go just a little bit bigger because I want to bring canvases and I want to showcase my bigger pieces. And this year that finally happened. I got my 4 tables. I was so excited about it. The only thing that could have made this better was I maxed out on what I could do for inventory as a single person without pallets involved.
Right.
So for 2023, I need to have pallets for this show because I can't bring the amount of, especially my canvases. They don't weigh a lot, but they're huge.
Yeah. For the dear listener, a pallet is like a drop shipped big thing that they'll bring in on a truck and a forklift with all your stuff.
And then we really started to kind of like look at the math of, okay, I have 3 suitcases. 2 were overweight. Darcy brought 2 suitcases. We ship stuff. Like by the time all that accumulates on the way there and on the way back, if it's all just on one central pallet and it's being dropped off at the convention center and then brought back to Winnipeg at some point, like we're going to have to figure out all the logistics, but it's something I'm definitely need to pull the trigger on for next year.
And you don't need to worry about losing your luggage.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, if you guys would it be possible to go in on a pallet with Lyndon?
I was going to bring that up as well.
Right?
So like on the way back, actually, that's how of all the canvases I brought, I only had 1 big one left. And so Raging Ape, Jonas Van Niekerk used to be my art director at Complex Games. He has a pallet coming back to Winnipeg. So I gave him my 1 big canvas. He put it on his pallet, and it's going to come back to the city. And that way I didn't have to ship anything after the show or check another big item.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, go ahead.
Well, we've been talking to George McHale, friend of the podcast and collaborator on Cover of Darkness with me. We've been talking about the logistics of if you're doing a certain number of shows and you're guaranteed to be at them, and there is just an enormous stress saving. It's not really a cost saving.
Yeah, because
it's just stress saving.
You're paying more, right? But when you get it delivered to the con, does it go where does that go? Just to the shipping area, and then you have to go find it and bring it to your booth, or how does that work?
Sometimes that is what happens,
Yeah.
and then that's a different kind of stress.
Yeah. But if you can get it delivered to your booth, wow, that'd be nice.
Yeah,
right?
that's the sweet spot. Okay, Darcy.
Okay.
What should Justin fix in this broken, leaky boat that he calls a life?
So we had this in San Diego, and it was sort of a happy accident that we had a table in our back room where all of our boxes were stacked. So it saves you from squatting, hunching, trying to find things that way. So I think we figured out by adding another table to the back how we can structure this, that it can still be used kind of outside, but also in our back room for the boxes of prints to sit on.
So that physically, while you're turning and twisting, and there's a lot less squatting and bending, and right? Yeah.
Basically taking one of the sides of my booth and then getting rid of the table and just having stands of canvases, having tripods with canvases on display, almost like a wall of art, and then that table being moved into the back room so all our inventory can be just, at waist level rather than bending down to get it off a chair.
Yeah, it's interesting. The logistics of having to build a little world when you get there versus like when you do a local show, you can just put some extra tables in your car and come is so different.
And people do that. People bring tons of extra tables.
Yeah.
I have one more change that I would like to see for next year.
Okay.
And that is the attendance of one GMB Kmichuk.
I think I will be there. I will be there.
How was it? Because you haven't missed this show in a very long time.
It's been a long time. Yeah, and I got a lot of messages from, and thank you, dear listeners, from people who are friends of the podcast, from people who are former collaborators, people who are fans and consumers of the work. A lot of messages that said, "Where's your booth? I can't find it.
And
Where's your booth?"
Your entire social media feed would have been just your friends at the show posting about it.
Yeah, posting about it. But I went on a work binge. So one of the things that I did was I worked basically nonstop for 52 hours on a whole bunch of different projects while my family was away. And this really helped mitigate the FOMO in that every time, rather than take a break from work, my break from work was to do a poster or a print or a piece of art, because I knew deep down all of you who were at that show, no matter how good it was, would rather be making things. And so then I started texting pictures of the stuff I was making instead of selling to all of those people. And I got some people like, oh my God, the show's so busy, but I wish I was making artwork. So I got my sweet revenge sending so many of those things.
And I guess that'll be the last note I have on the show is for Stephen and I know we both felt by the end of it that we had really, it felt like the first show where we had really come into our own in selling our work. Because prior to COVID, we'd only made 4 or 5 shows, and we were in a real role by the end of it. And at some point, Stephen turned to me and he said, this is great, but it's so weird to be having this great weekend without Gregory running up and down the aisles, stopping by every morning, giving us, late night plans on the weekends, and we have to go to our own movies and go to our own after parties. So your presence was sorely missed.
I promise to fill your social calendar for next Fan Expo. I promise. Well, ladies and gentlemen, no fleshy bags of mostly water. This has been Super Pulp Science, where we've talked about how genre gets made. I'm Gregory Kamichuk, encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.